Hi, my name is River,
Hi, my name is Blake.
and we're brothers. I'm a trans guy and I'm pansexual,
And I'm gay.
and we can get killed for saying that, but we're proud to say it anyway. I was inspired to create this video because of the Orlando shooting, and I really wanted to spread the message that it is not a choice and that this is serious things that are happening and what we could possibly do about it. So if you would like to hear more about that, then stick around and I'll add times at the bottom where you can see what to skip to. So I wrote a letter to my LGBT comic readers, and Blake and I are going to read it because we think that it's better to hear something out loud than just by reading it, and it's a hopefully nice message. Dear friends,
I am absolutely heartbroken about the mass shooting in Orlando.
I am terribly sorry for those of you who are also hurting over the news of this act of terror and hatred.
I am so sorry if this has created fear in your heart or made you retreat from the internal safety of being your true self.
Please hold on to the following in times of need.
There is always someone out there who loves you.
I love you.
Where there is hatred, the retaliation of love needs to be admired and cherished. Love always wins.
Love one another and look to each other for comfort, but most importantly, love yourself.
You are a sacred being.
You are worthy of life.
Let's live to the fullest for those who had no option to continue on living.
Stay safe, and I adore you all. Okay, so we have been talking a lot about the importance of having a safe space, and Orlando really brought that to the forefront because places like Pulse are a safe space where everyone is kind of on the same page and they can be themselves, and you can't really always find that outside of LGBT specific spaces.
Yeah, and that's what's so hard about the fact that now it seems like these spaces aren't necessarily safe anymore. And that's why a lot of people in our community are so fearful, because for a lot of people there's nowhere else to turn.
Yeah, well, on top of it, there's already just sort of a vibe of that in society as a whole.
Yeah.
So by taking the place that you have that, and that's where people can go on a weekly basis, like there's not always going to be a pride parade, and the whole reason that we have pride is because all year round there's hardly anything that people can go and feel safe as. They can't feel free to love, which is so basic and so natural to humans that it becomes really difficult when the safe places that are actually provided throughout the year aren't as safe as they used to be, or whatever little safety they had, because who's to say that it's even safe anyway? Whatever little safety there was has been somewhat ruined. The main point of this is that by the societal standards we've created as a society, and by what is deemed as normal, even though it's not necessarily normal or not, it's just normal to feel however you feel, but because of this, people have to hide their inner truth, even though that is what makes them feel whole and feel like it's true to themselves.
These spaces used to be places where you could feel whole without anybody judging you, and that's why they were so important.
So as we were talking about this, it really reminded me a lot of my partner and I, because we aren't even publicly out on Facebook, and it's very real that they are unable to come out. No one even uses their correct pronouns, first of all, but even just coming out as their sexuality is just so incredibly hard because of the social stigma and traditional ideals are centered around them. So I asked them to write me a letter about how it feels to hide. It's gonna be really hard for me.
I know.
Okay. Okay. Hiding. For your own good. The only way to blend into society. The only way to escape. The only way to live. Hiding. I have to constantly hide, mostly around my family and friends. Being afraid of the judgments they will make on me. Being afraid of no longer being a part of the family I grew up in. Being afraid of my identity completely distorting into a monster. Of course I hide because I know it is safe. I know hiding has saved me from being afraid and pushing friends and family away. But hiding has also caused me to go insane. It is like walking straight into the deepest part of a river. And as you hold your last breath, that is the only thing that is keeping your true self alive. Your last breath that contains your true identity, happiness, and life. That last breath is what you tried so hard to grasp, then leaves you while you drown in your own thoughts. You drown, but you save yourself from being hurt by others. This is what I have to deal with so that I do not push away people I love. I'm not saying it's impossible to live like we should. I'm saying it's just hard to come out. There are people, friends, family, partners that are willing to support you. They are the ones helping, the ones that dive in to help you out. I am Byron and I am proud. So thank you so much for writing that, and I think it really brings forward what it means to have to hide. And we've all been in that place in one time or another. And for some people it is harder than others, but in general everyone can kind of understand, because of this social stigma, how much it affects you when it's really just about love and acceptance, and it shouldn't be full of hatred such as it is. If you can relate to that, we'd like to invite you to comment down below about how it feels, and I might incorporate it into a new video. So if you would like me to, please use this in the video at the very bottom, like in parentheses or something. So Blake and I were going to talk more about our experiences of coming out, and we thought we would maybe say what the other one noticed about the other's experience instead of just talking about our own experiences. So you can start, because I've talked a lot.
Okay. Basically, a lot of what I noticed about River's experience when he was coming out was that it was really hard for people to understand exactly what was going on for him inside. Because one, being transgender is still a relatively new thing that we've come to understand. So a lot of people, when they were hearing that, they were confused, and they were still misgendering him and things like that because they were confused. And also, what I've noticed that kind of goes with that is that we've had to actually make it clear that he is male and he identifies as male. Where in sexuality, that doesn't always necessarily come up, so you don't really have to do that. But with gender, it's almost like it's just something that just, for some reason, because that's just how people relate to each other and talk to each other in our society, it's just something that constantly comes up. So that's why I think it's really difficult. I've noticed that it was really difficult for him, because it's just, you have to say it and explain yourself over and over again.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part about that is that if any of you know stuff about trans history, it's not like this is a new concept, it's that it's a new concept for people in this normalized idea of society. So
yeah, that's all I meant. It's trans people have always been around, but this is really a time where society is starting to understand that they are around.
Yeah, that it exists.
But they're only just starting to. So
yeah, I think another interesting that Blake and I were talking about in terms of that is that it's kind of like how being gay used to be is what gender is now in terms of coming out, because people are just confused, and then, like, let's say you're bi or something, they just don't think it exists. I mean, it's very relatable to being non-binary.
Yeah.
And
they just think that it's just something that's made up, or it's something that you're doing just to get attention or something like that.
Yeah, but all in all, even if people would understand, sometimes people just don't understand the gravity of it. They think like, oh, well, this is just a term to it, but I can keep calling you the wrong gender and you'll survive. But it's like, no, this is necessary. This is not a choice that we have to make. This is what we need to survive.
This is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you can change. It's not something you can take a pill and cure or something like that. It's not even a disease anyway. There's nothing wrong with it.
Or be tortured into...
Or be tortured, or, get into electric shock therapy, all that kind of stuff. It's just, that's just not the reality of gender and sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as, like, how does it affect everyone else other than me and my need to survive?
Right, exactly. It's just, it's something that makes him feel like he's fulfilled, and he feels like he can express himself the way that he feels inside.
Well, what I was thinking is that it's very relatable to when Blake had to come out, because he kind of figured everything out in terms of sexuality before I did, because a lot of my sexuality was tied into confusion between gender and like physically transitioning, which is there's a lot to jumble in my head for many years. And then on top of the social pressure, which Blake definitely had as well. I mean, he at first tried to come out to us and say that he was bi because people didn't believe in that, and they're like, oh, well, at least he could still be in a hetero relationship. And I was just like, no.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it's such a new concept for people still. This was like, I don't know, 6 years ago or something.
Yeah, something like that. I was in like 7th grade or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when he came out as gay, my parents had a little bit more understanding, and it's not like they're very conservative. They're pretty open and progressive people. It's just like, this is literally what has been drilled into people's heads, and that is why it's so important to begin to discuss why it is toxic. That there's nothing wrong that people are feeling this way, it's just who they are.
Yeah, just to make clear, what was drilled into their heads was that, it's really dangerous to be gay or to be any form of LGBT, really. There are a lot of people that are hateful towards that community, and that's what scared them the most. And that's how they felt when both of us came out. They were very concerned about that. But that is something that is drilled into everyone's minds when they hear that someone's LGBT. They're concerned about whether their children are going to be safe. Well, if they even accept that, because they've just seen in history that those people have not been safe.
I think it's also part of the history of just there being a stigma around it. Even if you think you don't have any preconceived ideas, sometimes people can be very judgmental. So even if I determine someone as an ally, it doesn't mean they're completely an ally in terms of trans. Like, a gay ally isn't necessarily a trans ally, and maybe vice versa. I don't know, it just depends.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It's just that obviously with the shooting, it's clear it's dangerous. I mean, I always read about people being shot or killed or beat up.
Yeah.
Or just even harassed at school, but it's more dangerous to not live as yourself, and the amount of people who commit suicide or just live unhappy, untruthful lives is just appalling. It's very
really
disturbing.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. So, after we've mentioned all this, I don't want you to feel like that there's nothing you can do to help, because that is something that we all need to start focusing on and really pushing forward. Let's just say you're in a situation where you can't come out, you're feeling unsafe for whatever reason, and you shouldn't come out unless you feel safe enough to do so. One way, I think, to start building a general positivity is to start standing up for other people. So if you know someone who's in the LGBT community and you can help them in some way, or stand up for them, or just do like an anonymous donation, or at least just provide some general type of support. You don't have to come out personally, but you can spread the love in a way that they can then return to you later. And society can then build each other up, because the more examples that are out there of people supporting each other, the more that people are going to follow and be like, oh, this is a normal thing that you do. Like, obviously, we're all gonna love each other, so that's just what you do.
This reminds me of a quote that Martin Luther King said. What he's saying is that you can't hate people who are hateful of the LGBT community. You just have to spread love to people in your own community and people outside of that community, and then that will allow them to start loving you. And that's the way, really, to fight homophobia. Not with more judging, because that just adds to the negativity, but with loving, because that turns the negativity into positivity.
Mm-hmm. And also, I would like to say to not feel deterred, or to not judge yourself for feeling this way, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's a good thing, because then you are more capable of accurately giving love to other people. You're more capable of accurately behaving in the ways that you want to. You're more pure and true self, despite what everyone else is saying. I just want you to know that this is what is true about you, and if you feel it in your heart, there's no denying it. I just think at the end of the day, everyone is here to survive and wants to survive the best that they can. And no one would choose to suffer or lose relationships or even be killed just to say that they're in the LGBT community. It's not a choice. It's still something that is an act of bravery to come out because of the social stigma. It's clearly not a choice. And because we're in this generation, we can continue to prove that when people become more accepting, because we're always going to be an example of how it wasn't a choice, and that we can change the generation in the future so that they don't have to suffer in the same way that we do. Also, just a general statement, in order to stop other people from abusing the LGBT community, we first have to love each other and help everyone gain their strength back in order to keep fighting and keep surviving.
There is hope. Society doesn't have to stay this way, and it won't stay this way as long as we do those things together. And we have to band together. We, within our own community, have to realize that we shouldn't judge each other. We should all stand together in solidarity so that we can start getting other people to understand us. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important right now. And if we do that, then this suffering will end.
Mm-hmm. And I think that regardless of if you're in the LGBT community or not, or if you're questioning, I just would just like to encourage anyone, no matter what sexuality or gender identity you are, to join us in this fight. And it's pretty much a fight for love, so it's not really a fight anyways.
And it's also showing people the truth. Mm-hmm. It's showing people what we as humans truly are. It's helping people learn about the true nature of humanity itself. And what better cause than that?
So, how about you go out there and you hug your friends, and you hug your family.
Or your sibling.
Yes. Spread the love.